All righty, we're going to get started this evening. My name's Nancy Howell, and I am one of the board members of Western Cuyahoga Audubon. And wow, can you believe it's already the 6th day of January? This is great. I guess it's moving very quickly. All right, so let's see where we're headed here, folks. All right, how come my screen is not moving to the next one? Come on, there we are. There I am, Nancy Howell. I'm the board member. And look at all the stuff that we have going on. Well, we're going to be chatting about briefly about the Christmas bird count review, lots of events and items of interest coming up, special volunteer requests and volunteer opportunities. And of course, we always like people to become members and sign up for our e-newsletter, be kept informed. All righty. So our Christmas bird count did take place on Sunday, December 28th. It was pleasant weather. I mean, it was kind of not real cold, 37 degrees in the morning, 56 by the afternoon, but it did rain fairly steadily in the morning. But then it cleared up and everybody was able to get out, and we did a pretty darn good day. Although I think the birds didn't like the rain quite as much. We had 72 species on count day, and there were 9 species that were noted during count week. 73 people participated, either walking a route, driving route, or watching a bird feeder. But we thank everybody so much. Here's one of the special things that is happening is the Western Reserve Land Conservancy is hosting a documentary called A Bird in Hand at the Capitol Theater. You can see Wednesday, January 21st at 7 o'clock. Registration is required, so if you want to take a photo, a screenshot of this, or you can go to the Western Reserve Land Conservancy website. There is a small cost, $10 per person, and the film is follows the master bird banders, Tom and Paula Bartlett, who have been banding for more than 50 years. And probably this year, they will be banding their 100,000th bird at their site in northwestern Ohio. And after the documentary, there will be a panel discussion. The Bartletts will be there as well as the filmmakers. So if you're interested in attending, please again register through Western Reserve Land Conservancy. Couple of other items of interest. The Shreve Migration Sensation, which will be taking place on Saturday, March 14th. Their website will have all kinds of information as to the activities and the locations of activities during the event. Just wanted to bring up that the Ohio Bird Atlas, formerly the Ohio Breeding Bird Atlas, but the Ohio Bird Atlas, the 3rd edition, will be worked on starting field work starts in 2028. And we will need people to go out and tally birds, keep track of their nesting, but also wintering. And so we're looking for people that are seasoned birders as well as the public, the general public. So if you have any ideas as to how we can get everyone involved with the Bird Atlas, please let us know, and you can see info at wcaudubon.org. In addition, the Great Backyard Bird Count is coming up in February. That's a Friday, February 13th through Monday, February 16th. Very easy. Count the birds in your backyard, in your neighborhood. It's just small. You just have to be out 15 minutes or certainly longer. So, what's really fun is once the data starts coming in, you can go to the birdcount.org, www.birdcount.org, and as data is coming in, the people send in photos from around the world. It is so fun. Oh, look at that thing from India. Oh, wow, look at that. It's going on in Europe. It's really fun. I love looking at that. So maybe you consider participating, maybe sending in a photo of some birds in your backyard. Just wanted to bring up that World Migratory Bird Day in 2026 takes place on the second Saturdays of May and October, which also happen to be Saturdays that we do our second Saturday bird walks at Rocky River Nature Center. So, but what World Migratory Bird Day, and it fits very nicely with the Great Backyard Bird Count, is that every bird counts. Your observations matter. So, again, please take a look at the website, and this is the Environment of the Americas website, and you can see a lot more about World Migratory Bird Day. We also have a fun event that we would very much like our members and guests to partner with. Blue Jay Retail, which is a birding and gardening store in Ohio City, is having a bird trivia night, as you can see on Thursday, January 22nd, and they're getting together teams. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a Western Cuyahoga Audubon team test with our bird knowledge and on ID and names and behaviors and stuff like that. And there are prizes. I think we could be winners. So if you're interested, you could probably aim your phone at that QR code right now on the screen and get information. Otherwise, we will be sending out additional information in the next couple of weeks. So we hope that you'll be able to think about it. And if you're not familiar with the area, the store is on Lorraine Road. It's on the side of a shop called Evangeline's, which is like a little florist shop and has other things. And parking is either on Lorraine Road itself or across the street at Planet Fitness. So again, very easy to find once you know where the entrance is. Again, it's on the side of the store of that shop called Evangeline's. Alrighty, we have a special volunteer request. Of course, we always know that any new buildings going up around the city that have reflective surfaces or windows, they have to be covered, or we would like to have them covered with bird-friendly, the dots to keep birds from crashing into them. Um, the Brown Stadium complex slated for Brook Park will, as you can see from the photos, have some reflective windows and reflective surfaces. So we're looking for about a dozen people to be part of a team, a committee and we're just at the very, very beginning of this in contacting the Brook Park mayor, city planner, the builders, the architects, so that we can get it into their heads to put bird-friendly glass, or at the very least, put up the like feather-friendly dots or the other things that can be attached to windows. But it's really best to just start off from the very beginning and putting bird-friendly windows up. No retrofitting. So if you are interested, please, you can contact me at Nancy Howell at wcaudubon.org. We've got a couple of folks who are interested, but we really do need more because as things ramp up, we're going to need all the help we can get. And this is not just going to be our Audubon group. We're going to be trying to spread it all throughout, well, Ohio. Anybody that loves birds knows that we can get some things done. A couple of other volunteer opportunities, photographers for our bird walks. We could use some help with some fundraising and friend raising assistance. special event volunteering when we are going to be doing things like Earth Day events and so forth. We'd have these things listed in our newsletter. We also send them out through e-blasts. And for those who may like to write, we love to hear new voices in our newsletter. Maybe it's a book review, maybe it's a place you visited, maybe it's information about a favorite bird that you like. Photographs would be lovely too. But we'd like to add some additional things to our newsletter and make it your newsletter as well, not just those of us who are, putting in the field trips and our programs and stuff like that. So please keep informed uh, at our website and become a member too. Thank you. Michelle.
That's me. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to just really quickly run through slides about our upcoming bird walks and how you can connect with us on social media. Next slide. All right, we have our second Saturday bird walk coming up this Saturday, January 10th at 9 a.m. We meet at the Rocky River Nature Center between the upper and lower parking lots of the Nature Center. And then Bill Dininger, Dave Gress-Kemper, Ken Gober, and Al Rand will lead us around the Nature Center trails for a couple of hours. And I've got the QR code right there on the screen that'll take you to that calendar event with all the details. Next slide, please. And then we have our urban bird walk, gulls and waterfowl, coming up January 24th. That's a Saturday, the fourth Saturday of this month at 9 a.m. We will be meeting at the Towpath Public Parking Lot at 1315 Abbey Avenue in the Tremont area. And leaders Nancy Howell and Al Rand will lead us on that walk. And again, another QR code right there. So you can be taken straight to the event and get all the details. Next slide. All right, and then lastly, please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. So be sure to follow us and subscribe so that you don't miss anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Love this photo of the cardinal.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we also have a book discussion series, and Drina Nemes will be sharing information about that. Hi, Drina.
Hello, Nancy, and good evening, everybody. Well, we're continuing into our sixth season. We finished Close to Home by Thor Hansen, but coming up January 20th is Wild America by Roger Tory Peterson and James Fisher. And then in April, we'll have like the sequel, Return to Wild America, which was written at the 50th anniversary of Wild America. Next slide, please. So Wild America was written in 1955, and it is a remarkable story of these two great naturalists as they made their way around the perimeter of our country. I have included here one of the many drawings, pen drawings that Roger Tory Peterson included in this beautiful book. And there are many, many gorgeous paintings. And I obtained this painting from the Roger Tory Peterson Institute, which houses everything that Roger Tory Peterson created. Next slide, please. And here's a picture of James Fisher and Roger Tory Peterson. James Fisher was the David Adelson of the 20th century, mid-20th century. And he and Roger Tory Peterson became friends, and then they took this great journey. Apparently, they didn't have too many arguments. There are a couple that are listed in the book. Next slide, please. This is a map that's at the beginning of the book showing their journey and their various stops, around the perimeter. And you can see it's pretty much geared toward the sea. They did not do too much in the interior, but James Fisher was such an expert on seabirds. That was a little bit of the idea of having as many opportunities to see seabirds. Next slide, please. This is one resource on YouTube of Roger Tory Peterson, such a great naturalist. There are many. So if you type in Roger Tory Peterson, you will find quite a few. Next slide, please. And then here's the Roger Tory Peterson Institute, a photo from, and it's in Jamestown, New York. It is a beautiful building and it's worthwhile taking a trip there. It's 169 miles from my home in Bay Village. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Drina. Yes, I'm working on the Wild America, and it's so interesting. It'll be a real interesting comparison with the original and then Scott Weidensaul's edition. The changes that will have gone on since, well, 1955. Alrighty. Amanda Sobrowski is our coffee coordinator and, of course, a WCAS member. Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Next slide. I think everyone's probably heard my spiel like a million times, but it's important to drink bird-friendly coffee. It's Smithsonian certified. It makes sure that the habitat for our birds and all the animals that depend upon the rainforest stay intact. And it also gives a living wage to the farmers that farm the coffee. And it also helps with our mission. It makes a small amount of money for the club. So we appreciate anyone that buys our coffee. The coffee just came in today, so I'll be delivering it for this time next couple of days. And I just wanted to mention that the coffee website will be down until mid-March because we're anticipating another raise in the costs. So just if you need to order more coffee, know that the website will be back up mid-March. Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. And of course, as Amanda mentioned, she delivers the coffee to you. So I think it's a real benefit. And we hope that the price won't go up a whole lot. And maybe we can even get that information up on the website and out to our members and coffee drinkers even sooner than that. But time will tell.
Thanks.
Thank you. Marianne Ramito is the coordinator of our Climate Watch. So, Marianne.
Hi there, everybody. Climate Watch is a program that was started by National Audubon. And every summer, well, every winter and every summer, we go out and we count birds. We count birds, but not every single bird. We only count 5 species. And there's towhee, goldfinch, white-breasted nuthatch, red-breasted nuthatch, and bluebirds. So it's not a real challenging kind of count, but it's important. It's important because it gives Audubon data about how the climate is affecting our bird population. You can go to the okay, back up once. Can you? Okay, this winter's Climate Watch survey is from January the 15th through February the 15th. Okay, and now you can switch to the next slide, please. And we're planning on having a big day on Saturday the 17th. However, I suggest that you go out the first day that the weather is just lovely and do your bird count if you wish to participate. And we're hoping that you will. You can reach me at marianneramito@gmail.com or my cell phone, which is on the screen here. And if you're interested in how the bird survey works, you can take a picture of this screen and look at that the video that I did a couple of years ago. And again, it's not difficult. You go out for 5 minutes and at 12 different points and count the number of those species that I mentioned before. So hopefully you'll contact me. Let me know. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Marianne. Yes, it is a lot of fun. And yes, do watch the weather. We have been snowed out on our days that we want to do, like the one and done, but that's okay because like you say, Marianne, January 15th through February 15th. All righty. Speaking of February, how about that? I am thrilled again for this speaker, Killian Sullivan, not a name that you may have heard, but maybe some of you have. He is the American Birding Association's Young Birder of the Year and birder extraordinaire. He's from Ohio, from Gahanna, Ohio, and he is going to do a presentation for us. I think he's either 13 or 14. He has 700 species of birds under his belt. Can you believe that? But if you've heard him speak at other events, that's great. But I am so thrilled that he's going to be speaking with us on Tuesday, February 3rd, again via Zoom. So I hope that you'll be able to join us for that. But this evening, we have another great presentation, How Birds Created the World and Other Stories from the Complete Language of Birds by Randi Minetor. And Randi, oh, I'm so thrilled that she contacted us. She's an author and professional speaker. She's been a writer for more than 40 years, producing nearly 100 books. Additionally, Randi is the president of the Rochester Birding Association in Western New York. In 1998, Randi chose self-employment and the open road over her ad agency executive position. She formed relationships with publishers and has added more than 50 books to their lists. Randi also serves as a ghostwriter and or developmental editor for corporate executives, entrepreneurs, and others who have big ideas and no time to write them down. Ooh, I need that. I've got big ideas all the time. She also writes corporate histories for businesses celebrating milestone anniversaries. Randi writes for a number of trade and special interest magazines, including Building Stone, North American Birds, and Birding. The Complete Language of Birds is an encyclopedia of more than 400 bird species around the world, written for nature lovers at every level. And part of my information is covered up by something, but I want to get to the presentation. So I'm going to first of all say thank you for joining us this evening. Please consider becoming a member. And I am going to stop share so that Randi can join us with her presentation.
Here we go. Okay, and give me just a moment here. Whoops, picked the wrong thing. There we go. And go to the correct screen. There we go. Okay, does that look all right, Nancy?
Yes, it's beautiful. Looks great.
Great. Okay. Well, I thank you so much for inviting me to speak with your membership. This is very exciting. Oddly enough, I'm going to be in Cleveland for a couple of weeks at the end of March, so maybe I'll be able to join you for an event or a field trip or something along those lines.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that would be very exciting. So, once again, thank you so much for inviting me to join you. And you've heard about the book now. It is an encyclopedia of more than 400 bird species around the world, and the folklore and mythology that makes each of them special. So let's jump into this here. In the beginning. Whoop. There we go. In the beginning, there was a goose. This goose, in fact, an Egyptian goose, and at the time, the only being in the universe. Egyptians called it Gengen-Wer, or the Great Honker. This goose carried and protected the egg that, when hatched, would produce all of the life on Earth. But another being actually laid this egg, Geb, god of Earth, also known by the nickname Great Cackler. Whether or not Jeb was actually a goose himself is kind of subject to interpretation. But when he evolved into human form over the centuries, he often wore an Egyptian goose or another bird as part of his headdress. Here, I think we've got maybe a lesser blackback gull that he's got on his part of his headdress there. There are a lot of different versions of Jeb and what he might have looked like. Now, Egypt's creation story also includes a third being, Amun, Lord of the Thrones, who also liked to take the form of a goose, as you can see in this petroglyph here that's actually thousands of years old. In fact, the legend says that Amun's goose cry of victory over his adversaries became the very first sound heard by the people of Earth. And to commemorate this, Amun is known as the Great Shrieker. So Jeb laid the golden egg that contained the sun. Gengen-Wer incubated and hatched the egg that brought all the other beings into existence, and Amun's goose presence scared off all the early adversaries. The result was, well, let there be light. Now, down at the southern tip of Africa, the indigenous Khoisan people tell the story of their creator, a god called Swegob, who ignited a great fire to bring all of the traits of the animals out of the ether and into reality. He gathered all of these traits and he baked them into all kinds of animal shapes, kind of the way we do with Christmas cookies. And as he did this, a Cory bustard, this guy here, a very large bird with broad wings, served as his helper. The Cory bustard fanned the flames continually with his wings, keeping the fire burning until all of the animals were fully baked. Now, in a wonderful Aboriginal legend from Australia, all life began in the dark, skulking its way around the earth as best it could. The spirits of the sky spent part of an eternity deciding how they would bring light into the world. So they built a huge pile of sticks that they planned to ignite, but they didn't want to frighten all the beings on the ground by suddenly producing a big burst of light. So one day, an emu named Dinawan and a brolga named Bralach sat side by side on their nests, protecting their eggs in the dark. And as they talked about the children they would bring into the world soon, they began to argue about whose children would be stronger and whose would be more clever, very much like any other two pregnant women sitting around talking about their future offspring. The discussion became more and more heated, and finally, Bralach grabbed one of Dinawan's eggs in her bill and used all of her fury to throw it as high as she could into the sky. And so high did it go that it collided with the huge pile of sticks collected by the spirits. So the egg broke open, the yolk spilled over the sticks, and somehow this kindled them into a great bonfire. The sky lit up, bathed the earth in light, and showed everybody just how beautiful Australia was. And from that day forward, the spirits decided that they would build a great fire every morning to light up the earth and let it burn until evening. But they still worried that the transition to light every day would frighten the animals. So they searched for one animal who would call to everyone every morning before they lit the fire to let them know that light was on its way soon. And which animal did they choose? Well, if you've been to Australia, you know that it's the laughing kookaburra, who was only too happy to volunteer to play this very important role. And to this day, this devoted bird wakes up the entire continent by calling just before sunrise. Now, after the birds helped get the world up and running, they continued to play pivotal roles in the early days of the earth. And one of the big surprises for me in researching this book, The Complete Language of Birds, was the sheer number of cultures around the world that have a great flood in their origin story. Now, we all know the story of Noah and the ark, of course, and that as the waters began to recede once the 40-day flood stopped, Noah released first a raven and then a dove to see if they would find land. The raven never came back, probably because it found some nice waterlogged carrion to munch on and he forgot all about the ark. But the dove felt more of a duty to Noah for saving its life, so it brought back the olive leaf. This meant that land had begun to emerge from the water. Well, other cultures tell the story a little bit differently. In some areas of the United States, for example, Christians associate the painted bunting with the rainbow that God sent to Noah as a sign of his covenant with the earth. Painted buntings are the living embodiment of the rainbow, reminding us that God protects us and will not destroy his creation again. Now, in the Biracek area of Turkey, people believe that Noah released a northern bald ibis from the ark, a bird they see as a symbol of fertility to guide the repopulation of the earth. Now, the Athabaskans of Alaska believe that the Great Flood came to an end with the help of the bittern. The bittern swallowed enormous amounts of water, flew to where more water would do the most good, and regurgitated that water to form new rivers like these beautiful braided rivers that we see in Alaska. Now, an Ojibwa legend tells us that long ago, the Creator sent the great flood to purify the world and drown everything evil, and one man, Wayne Abuju, worked quickly and built himself a raft and managed to keep himself and a few animals afloat for an entire month as they waited for the water to recede. But the water didn't go down. So he summoned several different birds to dive to the bottom and retrieve some dirt from the old world, which he would use to start a new continent. The loon was the logical savior, the one who you think would be able to dive that far, but he tried and he failed. So then the dove volunteered, but as you can imagine, that didn't go very well, and the poor thing nearly drowned. So finally, a lone coot took on the challenge without telling anybody what he intended. Time passed before the other birds even noticed he was gone, and they started to search for him, and they found him floating behind the raft, unconscious but still breathing. And sure enough, when they started to resuscitate him, they found a little bit of mud from the bottom of the floodwater stuck to his bill. The coot had saved them, and Waynaboojoo could restart the continent. It's worth noting that many other Native American legends of the Great Flood tell the same story, but with a different waterfowl as the hero. In the Algonquin culture, for example, it's a merganser who brings up the morsel of earth using its strong feet to push off from the raft and drive itself downward, and then that sharp red bill to pick up the earth and bring it back. Now, according to a Maori legend from New Zealand, the god Tawaki, who makes lightning and thunder, caused the flood when he created the crystal floor of heaven. The crystal floor caused all the water in the sky to fall on one place, Fjordland, where the Fjordland penguin lives. This area receives some of the most torrential rain in New Zealand, so the Fjordland penguins have been credited with actually making the rain fall and perhaps assisting Tawaki in creating the Great Flood. Now, in the jungles of Panama, the Great Flood serves as an origin story for the Great Tinamu. It seems that after the flood covered the world in water, the sun returned and a rainbow appeared. And the Great Tinamu, this dun-colored bird that blends right in with the surrounding foliage, saw the rainbow, and the intense colors frightened the bird away. It flew away from all of the other animals and retreated into the murkiest part of the forest, where it lives to this day, shunning color in favor of darkness. So these are just a few of the flood-related stories I've found in which birds play a starring role. But these amazing birds have many more lessons to teach us throughout the world's folklore and mythology. Now, before I started work on this book, I really had never thought about much about what birds must have represented to ancient civilizations. We take so much knowledge for granted now, but there was once a time when people knew very little science about birds' habits and behavior. So when these people looked at the world around them and all the things they couldn't explain, they filled in some of the gaps with birds and their amazing abilities. So here's one of my favorite examples of this. Before science understood what we do now about migration and how it happens, it seemed to many observers that birds simply vanished in the fall and reemerged in spring from wherever their hiding places were that they had used over the winter. So, one of the most bizarre theories about this involves the barnacle goose, a European species not unlike our own Canada goose. Theorists back in the 500 AD saw barnacles along wharves and docks and on the bottoms of their boat, and they guessed that these geese transformed themselves into these tiny little barnacles, adhering to surfaces to wait out the frigid weather. And in spring, the warmer weather gave them the cue they needed to change back. Back in 350 BC, the learned Greek philosopher Aristotle for God's sake, theorized that swallows, with their ability to dive so close to the surface of lakes and ponds, actually dove to the bottom in the fall and burrowed into the mud there to wait out the winter. The whole oxygen thing was kind of lost on Aristotle at that point, so we have to take that into account. This theory actually held on until the late 1700s, when sailors returning to Europe from warmer climates at the end of winter reported seeing huge flocks of swallows in Africa, and they managed to put two and two together. Then, in 1822, German villagers shot down a white stork, this very white stork that you see here that is in a museum in Germany. It has a wooden spear piercing its neck, and the spear's unusual wood could only have come from Africa. So in a flash of insight, the German hunters realized that this bird must have migrated all the way to another continent and back. So a single white stork finally changed the way ornithologists understood migration. That being said, so much of what people around the world attribute to birds has really nothing whatsoever to do with science. Wondrous parrots like the imperial Amazon and the African gray parrot, very popular as pets here, are believed to have the ability to communicate with the spiritual realm. Not only can they fly high enough to reach the gods in the clouds, but they can actually form words. So you may need to watch what you say around one, or he may tattle to the ruling spirits, or worse, to your deceased relatives, and God only knows what will be waiting for you when you get up there. One of our favorite North American birds, of course, the anhinga, has represented different things to different cultures. We know that the bird's classic stance, holding its wings out from its sides to dry after diving for its fish dinner. Some Christians see this as symbolic of the crucifix, making the anhinga a perpetual reminder of the passion of Christ and therefore selfless, forgiving, and holy. On the other hand, the indigenous Tupi people of Brazil actually gave the anhinga its name, which means devil bird in their language. They determined that the anhinga is a trickster and a troublemaker. They reached this conclusion because the bird swims with its body submerged and only its head and neck out of the water, resembling a snake. Such a creature can't possibly be up to anything good. Now here's one of my favorites. Two categories of birds, magpies and mynas, that require us to be especially respectful when we see them, asking after their health and their family's welfare. If we treat them with disdain or ignore them altogether, we may meet a particular fate based on how many of the birds we actually see together. There's even a nursery rhyme to make this clear. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl, 4 for a boy, 5 for silver, 6 for gold, 7 for a secret never to be told. So whenever you see a myna or a magpie, if you're out west or in Hawaii perhaps, be sure to greet it warmly. Good afternoon, sir or miss. How are you today? Is your family well? If you're with a group and you don't want to look like a lunatic, just smile and nod or bow slightly. I'm told the bird will understand. And 2 years ago, when we were in Hawaii, I spent a lot of time nodding and smiling at common mynas. I must have looked like one of those drinking birds that gets the water and keeps bobbing up and down. It was absurd because they're like starlings there. Now, one of my favorite stories involves the common kingfisher, the gorgeous bright blue bird of the rivers and lakes of Europe, obviously a relative of our own belted kingfisher. This is the tragic tale of Ceyx and Alcyone, two lovers in the days when Greek culture involved many gods living on Mount Olympus. Ceyx and Alcyone were soulmates, but equally important at the time, they were particularly well matched in physical beauty. This made the couple very popular with the gods, who observed their romance with great interest, much the way we might watch The Bachelor today. The pair married, they began a life together, and they were so happy that, like most married couples, they gave each other little nicknames. Unfortunately, they chose to call each other Zeus and Hera, the names of the two gods at the very top of the Greek pantheon. Well, instead of flattering Zeus, this made him very angry because Zeus is kind of a jerk. So one day, when Ceyx boarded a ship to Ionia, Zeus kicked up a storm, and his wrath created a massive wave that swallowed up the ship. Ceyx drowned, and his body sank to the bottom of the sea. Hera, however, knew how devastated Alcyone would be if she never knew for certain what had happened to Ceyx. As she watched the young woman wait and weep by the shore, Hera caused Ceyx's body to wash up near where Alcyone waited for word of him. Alcyone, anguished by her loss, threw herself into the sea and drowned. Well, now Zeus felt not all kinds of remorse for the revenge he had exacted, and he resurrected both of them from the dead, but he turned the two lovers into halcyon birds, naming them for Alcyone. Today we know them as common kingfishers, and every summer, for 2 weeks, the winds grow calm, so kingfishers can nest on the beach and bring a brood into the world. We call these the halcyon days, a period of calm and happiness, and Alcyone remains part of the taxonomic name for several of the world's kingfishers. Now, have you ever wondered how goldfinches got their bright yellow color? Well, the Iroquois people did, and the story has been passed down for generations. It seems a fox chased a raccoon to make the little bandit its dinner. The raccoon ran up a tree, so the hungry fox waited all day at the bottom, but the raccoon did not come down. I'm going to point out here, you can tell that I made this with AI because the raccoon has two tails. So eventually the fox dozed off, and when he awoke, he found that the raccoon was gone. But before it left, it painted the fox's eyes shut with tree resin. The resin had hardened, and it wouldn't come off, so the fox called and called for help. Some drab little finches in the neighborhood took pity on the crying fox, and they flew in and they pecked off the resin. The fox thanked them for this good deed by using some yellow flowers nearby to color their plumage bright yellow, the color of sunshine. The goldfinches wear this color to this day, and I chose Canada goldenrod as a possible thing that the fox might have called on here, because of course this is a native plant and something that the Iroquois would have known was bright yellow in their area. Now the story of the trapped fox and the helpful bird is one of the tales that shows up in the folklore of many different cultures, where it may be used to explain hummingbirds' iridescence or the bright color of a northern cardinal. We can imagine people of many different tribes coming together thousands of years ago in meeting places like Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, Wupatki in Arizona, or in this place pictured here, now known as Aztec Ruins National Monument in New Mexico. They would trade goods and tell stories in kivas or in the shadows of ceremonial mounds. And one tribe might have an explanation for a specific thing that the others haven't explored yet, so these stories stories spread and became part of other cultures. So let's turn now to some of the bravest and most superstitious people on the planet, those who ply their trades on ships at sea. Entire books have been written about the omens and portents brought by pelagic birds over boats filled with sailors, fishermen, or explorers. Seafarers especially revere the albatross. Any of the 22 species of these magnificent birds, including this Laysan albatross that we were fortunate to see while we were in Hawaii. For centuries, having an albatross around your neck has been synonymous with carrying a weighty burden that we cannot wait to dispose of as soon as possible. So this expression comes, of course, from Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which I will not recite for you now. But in it, we learn that killing an albatross is the worst luck of all bad luck, inviting shipwreck and certain death. So how do we counteract this bad omen? Well, the person who killed the bird has to wear it on a rope around his neck, literally carrying the burden of the misdeed. Now, an albatross can weigh as much as 18 pounds, so this is nothing to take lightly. Albatross lore on the high seas can govern the lives of sailors with endless speculation of whether an albatross following a ship is a good omen with a promise of the bird's protection or a bad omen of an oncoming storm with the bird hiding behind the ship to avoid the worst of it. Well, whichever it turns out to be, there's yet another twist. The albatross most likely carries the soul of a sailor lost at sea. So whether it's good news or bad news, the bird's protection or its warning are really all meant with the best of intentions. Now, Coleridge's poem dominates sea lore, so it may seem that albatrosses are the only birds that affect a sailor's fortune. But the family of northern storm petrels also carry considerable weight with seafarers. The storm part of the name comes from their habit of taking refuge from an oncoming gale by following closely behind a ship, letting the large structure, and in the old days its sails, block the worst of the weather. Now, sailors took this as a dependable warning that a storm was on its way, but some thought that the birds actually brought the storm with them, making a flock of storm petrels at a ship's stern a very worrisome sight. In fact, some seafarers went so far as to call it good luck if a storm petrel happened to defecate on them as it passed over them, which makes this a good time to remind you of the first rule of birding: never look up with your mouth open. Now, killing a storm petrel, even in retaliation for this defecation, was and is still considered bad luck, as if the shooter wishes to invite bad weather for a long stay. So if you want to find yourself caught at sea in the middle of a hurricane, all you have to do is shoot down a storm petrel. Now, as long as we're on the subject of disgusting things people do at sea, fishermen of old observed gray herons, the European version of our great blue heron, standing patiently waiting for fish to swim by at just the right distance, and decided that something about the heron's feet must attract the fish. So they carried a heron's foot to improve their luck, and some actually coated their fishing lines with a noxious goo they made from heron's fat and feet. As this practice has faded, we can assume that it was not very effective and may be utterly intolerable. I also learned some fairly dark things about birds' lives, and I made a point of including these in the book as well because readers need to know that some of the world's birds face challenges from people with very selfish ends. The parrots of the Caribbean islands, for example, have been poached nearly to death for the black market on pet birds. Some of the islands have moved to name these birds as their national symbols, which has released funds and organized efforts to save them. But on some of these islands, it's virtually impossible to see the parrots that were once abundant there. You need special permission to go into wildlife refuges that have highly elevated levels of protection. And then we have the fate of the ortolan, a tiny bird that has had the bad luck of becoming a delicacy in parts of Europe. The recipe is gruesome. They fatten the bird up in a cage for more than 3 weeks, and then they actually kill it by drowning it in Armagnac brandy. The chef then cooks it. I'm told he dips it and deep fries it and serves it whole. And the gourmands who eat the ortolan pop it down in one bite. But first, they toss a napkin over their face so they won't be seen stuffing their mouths with this thing. Only the beak remains on the plate when they're finished. I'm glad to report that the European Union has banned this practice, but there are still corners of Europe where you can get an ortolan for dinner. Finally, let's talk about birds that don't exist. As we've seen long before we began to understand birds in scientific terms, miraculous flying creatures became part of nearly every culture's mythology. So sometimes the power of actual living birds just didn't rise to the levels that the gods and the storytellers required. Birds need to do something more. Meld with the body of a god or goddess, for example, or become the lead character in a myth so vivid that it needs a supernatural species to tell it. Now, in Egypt, the god Tot takes on the mantle of a bird, specifically an African sacred ibis, while he controls the passage of time and the change of seasons. Tot is god of the moon, wisdom, writing, hieroglyphics, science, magic, and art, so he's a busy dude. The ibis head allows him to change the pace of the passage of time so he can get all of his work done. This only works for Tot. Don't try it at home. On the flip side of this benevolence, there's a mythical bird called an uzlum that provides an excuse for foolishness, shifting the blame for mistakes away from humans and onto a bird too silly to behave itself. In British and Australian legend, uzlum flies in a spiral of tighter and tighter circles until it eventually flies up its own butt. I'm guessing that everybody listening knows an uzlum in some form. Now here's the feng huang, or Chinese phoenix, one of China's 12 ornaments, ancient symbols that denote the power and authority of the wearer. The ornaments date back to at least 2294 BC and perhaps much, much earlier than that, embroidered on the clothing of high-ranking people in Chinese society. So the description of this beast has changed over the millennia, but this one follows the more recent depictions, more or less. A golden pheasant's head, a mandarin duck's body, a peacock's tail, a crane's legs, and a parrot's bill. Now, whenever the feng huang appears, it implies the virtue and honesty of the people it adorns. So it often appears at weddings as a blessing of fidelity and harmony, and some households bring it out to display it in good times and hide it away when times turn tough. Now, exactly how and where we acquired the legend of the phoenix has been a subject of debate for thousands of years. It appears long before Greek mythology cemented the story of an immortal bird who eventually tired of its cushy life in paradise. Phoenix traveled to the mortal world where things lived and died, but the bird knew that he would remain immortal. Well, one night, Phoenix built a nest of twigs, and as he waited for Apollo, the sun god, to arrive, he began to sing. Morning came, and Apollo passed over in his golden chariot, but the sun god so admired Phoenix's song that he actually stopped in midair to listen. As he enjoyed the song, the sun stood still, and a spark from the sun dropped down onto Phoenix's nest of twigs. The nest ignited, and Phoenix burst into flames, dissolving into ashes. But all was not lost for Phoenix. 3 days later, the magical bird sprang up from the ashes, young and renewed, and the bird realized that he could do this again and again, but only once every 1,000 years. He continues to repeat this cycle of death and rebirth as he will for eternity. So that's the complete language of birds, with stories about nearly 400 species of birds around the world. It's illustrated rather than photographic, as you've seen, with vintage drawings by a wide range of artists, mostly of the 19th and early 20th centuries. This was such fun to write, I can't even tell you. It combined my love of birds, my love of natural science, and my love of history. And I hope it's as much fun for you to read as it was for me to write. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you. And now I will be happy to take your questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Randy. This was wonderful. Yeah, I love some of the exotic, fanciful birds at the end. Yes, the ooslam. Yeah.
Yeah, we all know an
Sorry,
Ooslam.
sorry. All right. So if anybody does have a question, you can unmute and ask the question. Yeah, nothing in the chat that I could see. Somebody wishes everyone a happy new year.
Mhm.
But yeah, so again, if anybody has a question, just pop in, please. Anybody? 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 So Randy, you've traveled a lot of different places. I mean, you mentioned Hawaii. Have you been to Australia?
No, I haven't been out of the United States except for a trip we just took to Newfoundland. So, no, I have not, I haven't done Australia, although it's on the list.
I'm wondering if anybody in that is watching has read the book or taken it out of the library. Anybody? Anybody? You can put your hand up if you want. Well, I can't see that, but I'm hoping people will look for it in a library or purchase it at some point. Oh, here's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
the
can you
question
see
I
that?
usually get. Yes, is
Okay.
most of my research online or in libraries. It was a combination of both. I mean, the internet is an amazing thing, but there are some stories you just can't get online. And I did have to make calls specifically to the Caribbean about parrots because while you find lots of notations about, oh, there's lots of stories about parrots, but the stories themselves are not online. So, um, so I did get in touch with some librarians. Oh my God, we still need libraries because librarians know everything. They know where everything is. And they got me some stuff. One actually scanned something that was handwritten for me. So I was able to tell some parrot stories from some of the places where that information is still handed down verbally. But it was the funny thing about this book is it gives the impression that it's a lifetime of research. It was 6 months. I actually, this book came to me when another author had started it and decided it was too hard, and she gave it up. And the publisher wanted to keep it in keep it in their production schedule. So the editor went looking for another author, and she knew me from books I had written for her at another publisher. So she came to me and said, "Can you do this in 6 months?" And I thought, well, I've done harder things faster. So so that's what I did. Um, and yeah, so it went very quickly, but it was quite the labor of love. Let's see, how did you narrow down which birds and folk tales to include in your book? The what I inherited the list that this other author had put together and discovered that most of what she had used was like the national bird of this and the national bird of that, and some of those just aren't very interesting. They're very very common birds. One of them, in fact, their national bird was the house sparrow. So there wasn't a lot of tale to tell there. So I substituted out as I went because you find one story and chances are you're going to find several others that are connected to it that bring in other birds. And then there were some that I just wanted to know about. I wanted to know the story of the Canada goose and how it was nearly extinct and then came back with such success. And others like that. So and anything in Greek and Roman mythology, I have always been interested in that. Uh, so it was tricky, but finding birds with great stories was really the heart of this. Interestingly, the thing that's really left out of this book is warblers because there just aren't very many There isn't a lot of folklore about warblers. I'm guessing because they move through here at least so quickly that there aren't a lot of stories to tell about them. So I was surprised at that, but it was an interesting discovery. Ah, somebody asked here, is there another book to write on your horizon? I am always writing a book. I also write the books about people who go to national parks and don't live through the experience. We refer to them as the death books, but you'll see them, in all the big parks, Death in Glacier National Park, Death in Zion National Park, and so on. So I just finished Death in Grand Teton National Park, which was my 99th book, and I am now talking with my publisher about what's going to be next, and that will be my 100th book.
Yeah. All right. Kirsten's got her hand raised. Can you unmute?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Randy. This was awesome. We got this book for Christmas, and
Oh, great.
just wanted to share. I don't know if anybody else has it, but I appreciated the stylistic approach to categorize the books alphabetically by Latin name, and also kind of how you had a few different common names and also group names, which we've really
Yeah.
gotten a kick out of in addition to all the other stories. So kind of the headers has, in addition to the rest of the really interesting stories, has been really enjoyable as well. But we're having a really great time with it. So thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. That was finding the collective names, the collective nouns for all of these birds was quite the challenge. But I have my favorites, particularly that older listeners here will get this, that one of the collective names for toucans is a Durante of toucans.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, there I hear. Yeah, for the younger people, Jimmy Durante was a wonderful comic actor of the 30s and 40s and I think 50s, who had a big schnoz. So it's very fitting that the toucans are named for him.
yeah. I was going to ask a similar question. Is the book arranged? Is it like an alphabetical order? But you answered that question,
Yep.
categories like you say, the seabirds, the parrots, the cranes, the fanciful mythical birds.
It's the mythical birds have their own section at the end, but the rest of it is alphabetical by taxonomy.
Okay. Yeah, let's not change this taxonomy on
Oh
us.
my God. I know. Yeah, it's a frightening thing.
Yeah. No, it never gets old. Yep. Um, yeah, I was thinking about this warbler thing too. The wood warblers are pretty much the North and South American birds. So if, the native peoples, the indigenous peoples, since they didn't write things down, they may have had stories, but
But who knows? Yeah.
right.
Well, that's exactly the thing. They do have categories like all of the yellow birds are symbolic of a healthy harvest, things like that. So that's a lot of warblers are yellow. So,
Hmm.
we can see when the yellow birds appeared, or for example, when the goldfinches get their spring plumage back, they know it's time to plant. So
Okay.
there was that in
Okay.
particular. Yeah, but specific warblers, you would think like Blackburnian or some of these really striking, beautiful birds would have stories, but not so much.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, I've heard another story from the native peoples about, creating the land for the two-leggeds and four-leggeds and winged and stuff like that.
Right.
It didn't include birds. It was all the mammals that went down to get the mud, but I like the bird one.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's it. That because every time I tell that story, I think you didn't send an otter. Send an otter.
Yeah. What was with this loon? You go,
Right,
loon,
right, right. Get a muskrat. But what can I say?
Oh, this has been terrific. I'm going to ask again one more time. Any final questions? Well, I guess not, but thank you so much for this evening. Appreciate your jokes. I was like, oh, I'm glad I was muted because yeah, I burst out laughing a couple times.
Oh,
But
great.
yeah, yep.
Well,
But thank you so much for this evening, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Remember, there's lots of stuff going on, and we're a busy organization, so we hope that you'll be able to give us a hand. Have a good night, everyone,
thank you so much. This
and
was a
Happy New
pleasure.
Year as well. Good night.
Night.